game get, and what will it take to stop Gaddafi? I spoke earlier to Bob Baer, intelligence columnist for Time.com and the author of The Company We Keep, a husband and wife true life spy story. He's a former CIA officer. And also I spoke with Professor Abu Bakr Saad, a former Gaddafi aide and now a history professor at Western Connecticut State University. In the late 70s, he took part in a plot to overthrow Gaddafi. The plot was discovered and the planned coup foiled, forcing Professor Saad to flee Libya. Here's what I talked to him and Bob Baer about earlier. Bob, what are Gaddafi's military capabilities at this point?
He is reduced to about 5,000 soldiers, regular soldiers. He has a large number of civilians he's handed out arms to and mercenaries, mainly from Chad and Niger. But regular armed forces isn't much, about 5,000, about a division.
And he has special forces which are controlled by one of his sons, right?
Khamis controls the 32nd Battalion. It's an elite battalion mainly made up of his tribe and loyalists, but it's nothing compared to the forces he's facing in terms of the regular army, about 45,000, and these large number of protesters.
And Professor Saad, does he trust his own military around him?
No, he never did. Even when I from the very beginning, since he came to power, you have to remember the first coup, first attempted coup against him happened only 1 year after he took over power.
And so, Professor, you actually were involved in an attempted coup against him that his intelligence services reportedly intercepted before it happened. How effective are his intelligence services?
His intelligence services were very effective in past years, but in recent years, actually, they began to deteriorate a little bit because of the fact that he favored his militia and his security forces over the military. You have to remember, as what Bob was saying, that he doesn't have control over the military, and even the military that he has. Even the ones who defected, really they were not trusted by him, and they were not armed and trained as well as his security forces. I mean, I tell you an example that when I was working for him, one of the officers actually confided in me once, and he was with the rank of a major, and he said that I am carrying a pistol, I am carrying a rifle, and he said, I don't have any munitions on me.
So he didn't want the people around him to have bullets in their weapons.
Yeah, exactly, Anderson. He didn't trust the military, so he really cut them short all the time because he was afraid that they might take him over and remove him from power.
Bob, when you look at how dictators like this often end up and get taken out, I was thinking about Kabila in Congo. Shot by somebody within his own inner circle. How do you see this playing out? Do you think that's the most likely scenario for Gaddafi?
What I heard early this morning was that Gaddafi may go only a couple more days before he has to leave Tripoli. This is what the inner circle is saying. They said he can't hold on much longer.
Where are you hearing this? You talked to somebody inside?
Yes, from Libyan intelligence, who I've known for 25 years. I can't tell you whether they're passing out disinformation, but he says that Gaddafi has completely lost his mind. The inner circle is afraid that he's going to use artillery on the cities, these rocket launchers that fire about 36 rockets. He's capable of anything. They're also telling me that he released from prison 110 fundamentalists, Islamic fundamentalists, and given them arms. And what he's told them to do is attack foreigners. Now, we know that he's come out and said Al-Qaeda is taking over this rebellion. The fact is that he's hoping that the West turns to him and says, we'll help you stop this, but of course it's not going to work.
Professor, when you saw him speak today, and when we've seen him speak the last couple of days, I mean, you know him, you used to translate what he would say. What did you see when you saw that man? How did he seem to you?
I've been observing him very closely, and I'm trying to read the signals from his face, from his hand gesture. This is a desperate man who is willing to go down with everybody else. He's not going to go down by himself.
Bob, how do you see this playing out? And what should viewers, what should we be watching for over the next 24, 48 hours?
People inside the inner circle are hoping that there's somebody from outside will come in and intervene. And, you know, the best thing that could happen if he were assassinated at this point. I see a spasm of violence in the retaking of Tripoli. I think he's capable of killing a lot of people before he's finally forced out. This administration is going to be faced with the dilemma, do we intervene? If foreign hostages are taken, do we intervene? Do we have enough troops? I see it getting a lot worse.
Professor, when we look at Gaddafi speak, I mean, any outsider will say, well, look, this guy, whether he's crazy or not, he certainly seems nonsensical and ridiculous and, you know, rambling and incoherent. When you were actually, I mean, when people were actually working for him, and yes. I know you tried to have a coup against him and ultimately had to flee the country for your life. But, I mean, did you see him as ridiculous then? Were you just scared of him? Or, I mean, what did the people around him, how would you talk about him?
See, everybody was afraid. It is the element of fear, because he was very brutal from the very beginning with anybody who opposed him. Especially, and his brutality really began to manifest itself very clearly, and everybody in Libya began to notice it, particularly those of us who were working for him and we were close to him. It started with his Green Book, publishing of his Green, and what he called the Green March over Libya, which basically to destroy every Libyan institution, political, social, economic, whatever it is, and then everything fits in his vision. He did that in 1973. That's where really most of the Libyans began to turn away from him completely. Before that, it was mainly the East. The East never accepted him. The day he took over power, the East never accepted him.
Bob, at this point, from an intelligence perspective, I would assume that the U.S. would be trying to contact, and I don't know what their kind of relations they have with the inner circle or others in the intelligence field inside Tripoli right now, but I would assume they would be trying to contact them and sending them very clear messages. You got to take action against this man, and you have to do that now.
Oh, I think absolutely. The United States and the CIA has had connections with Libya, you know, after Lockerbie was settled. It was a very close connection, and I'm sure right now that this administration is sending messages, cease and desist. Otherwise, we're going to do something.
Bob Baer, I appreciate your expertise, and Professor